Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and participants from across the globe, a very warm welcome to our international webinar on how to change your career in 2023, brought to you by the SEMS Welfare Foundation. I'm your host, Venkata Hemant Ladika, and I'm delighted for this empowering and transforming event. Today, we have the privilege of being joined by our exceptional speaker, Mr. Arjun Prakash. Arjun is the founder of Pivot, a visionary career tech platform that is revolutionizing the way individuals make successful career transitions. Pivot aspires to be the Amazon of the career space, offering a wide ranging marketplace that includes industry mentors, courses, and boot camps, jobs, career tools, and highly personalized support for every and mid-career professionals, all aimed at helping them achieve their career aspirations. Throughout this webinar, Arjun will be sharing his invaluable expertise and insights on navigating careers changes in 2023. Whatever you are looking for new opportunities, considering a career switch, or aiming to grow professionally, Arjun's guidance will undoubtedly inspire and equip you to make the most out of transformative journey. Before we dive into the session, let me take a moment to express our sincere gratitude to each one of you for being a part of this event. Your participation from various corners of the world enriches our collective learning experience, and we are thrilled to have you here today. Now, get ready to learn from Mr. Arjun Prakash and embark on journey of career transition in 2023. Over to you, sir.
All right. Thank you so much for that introduction, Venkat. I think you have gone through it in good detail, and I hope that was helpful for everybody who has joined us today. I do see we have quite a few people in the room, so it would be good if at some point we can do Q&A. I think Venkat, you mentioned we would be doing it towards the end of the session. Yeah, let me go through a bit about myself and also about the company that I run called Pivot and how we actually help people with their career transitions. So, firstly, I spent majority of my career in management consulting. So I started my career back in 2011 and first worked with companies in New York, US after graduating, where I was working directly with a lot of other companies, consulting them on their HR and talent management, rewards, performance improvement programs, right? All of these different things, primarily bucketed in the HR umbrella, right? So the goal was how to leverage organizations' workforce, their employees, to achieve the business goals, right? And I saw that upfront because we work directly with senior leadership teams and board of directors to help them get the most out of their workforce. After doing this for about 7 years, I realized that I wanted to move back to India and be part of the growth story that India was experiencing. So I moved back in 2018 and I worked with another large HR consulting firm called Mercer. Mercer helps again organizations improve and optimize their talent management programs so that they can achieve their business goals. I did that for about 2 years, where I built their executive rewards and corporate governance practice from the ground up. And I really enjoyed the work that I had been doing for about 2 years. At that point, I came across a lot of people in my network who were undergoing some sort of a career transition. So one of the key examples that I take is one of my very close friends at the time. She used to work in a nonprofit and she was thinking about transitioning to the media and entertainment space. Now, a lot of people would feel like, how can you make that transition happen? There is really no connection between nonprofit and media and entertainment. And that's right. There is very little overlap between the two sectors. But, there are a lot of people who are considering these kind of transitions more and more today, right? Whether, let's say, going from engineering to product management or going from sales role to a marketing role, or wanting to go from a 9 to 5 full-time employee to starting something of their own as an entrepreneur, right? So there are these kind of transitions that are happening more and more often, and I came across this in 2018 for the first time, where I realized that this was a big problem for a lot of people who wanted to do something different in their careers, either because they felt stuck within their existing career, or they wanted to pursue a new career because they felt passionate about it, right? So it's either a push factor where you are pushing yourself to leave your current job because of certain things that might not be working out. Let's say it could be that you don't like the nature of work. It could be that there is not much growth from a role or pay standpoint. Maybe there is not enough work life balance or certain other reasons which make you want to leave your current career or current job. And then there are certain pull factors which are pulling you towards the direction of a new career. And that could be, for example, feeling passionate about a new role which you have come across. Maybe one of your friends or somebody in your network is extremely fulfilled in their careers and you want to try out their role, or just something else you feel you will be better at, right? So there are all these different kinds of reasons why people make career transitions, and I came across them first in 2018. I started working with a lot of people one on one at that time, understand their career goals, their transition journeys, and realize that the problem of career transitions is very deep. People spend a lot of time, they work on it on their own without much support from other people, and they end up utilizing a lot of different tools and different platforms to make it happen. So it's a very haphazard and time consuming journey, right? And so what we have done by building Pivot is we have tried to make the journey more simplified, more organized, and more successful, so that you are doing everything that you need to do for your career transition on one platform. You don't have to utilize 10, 15 different platforms to accomplish your career transition. You also have to do everything in terms of, let's say, getting interview preparation support, you're getting CV reviewed, you're also applying for roles in different platforms. You can do everything in one place, right? That's one. The other is we support you in accomplishing your career transition by connecting you with industry experts in your target role for one-on-one guidance, right? So it's not that you have to do everything on your own. You actually get very personalized and high quality support from the right people in the field, right? So these are some of the things that we do on Pivot. Now, if I was to dive into today's topic, right, which is how to transition your career in 2023, there are certain steps that I want to talk about, which is kind of like a structured step-by-step journey that people can take to make a career transition, right? So usually when people start thinking about changing jobs or changing their careers, they just start applying for jobs right away, right? They would go, let's say, on a platform like LinkedIn or Naukri. They would search for the right jobs, and then they would just start applying. The problem with that approach is once you start applying, you see that you don't get many responses. The number of responses is typically limited to less than 1% of the number of applications that you make on these platforms. And that is a very difficult, very demoralizing, and inefficient process, because you're applying to hundreds of roles, but you're hearing back from just maybe one or two companies. Most of the other companies either ignore you, so they don't even respond back, or if they respond back, they usually have that templatized message saying that they would not be moving forward with your role or with your candidacy, right? So that approach, even though it's most common, it doesn't work. So let's talk about what really works today. And this is the journey that we have built on our platform Pivot, which people can check out. And I'll talk more about the platform, the website that we have. But let's dive into the exact journey that we think can actually bring a lot of success in terms of achieving your target role very quickly, right? So the journey for career transition, we have broken it down into 5 key modules, right? The first thing that people need to do when they are starting with their career transition is get more clarity on what are the best roles, industries, and companies for you to focus on, right? This is the most critical step. That's why it's the first one in the journey, But most people tend to ignore it or they don't do it, right? Because they feel like, okay, I'm an engineer or I'm in marketing or I am in XYZ role. So let me just, try to figure out what are the best companies by doing a quick Google search or a LinkedIn search, and that will be enough. That is not enough, right? You need to understand what are your skills that you can actually apply and become really good at in your field. You need to understand the nature of work that you actually like doing. So, what are your core interests? What are your core passions, right? You need to really have a strong understanding of that. Otherwise, no matter what field you go into, after a certain period of time, you would start feeling burnt out. You might start, hating the kind of work that you do, and it's not going to be feasible over a long term. So you will have to look for a transition at some point in time. But if you take the time in the beginning to understand the kind of things you enjoy doing from a work standpoint, for example, maybe you are a people person, and that means a role in sales or in marketing might be more relevant for you because it deals a lot with understanding people, interacting with people, all of that. Sometimes people are more analytical in nature. So if you are that, then perhaps a career more in finance or in data analytics might be better, right? If you have been doing coding and you really enjoy that, and obviously engineering is a great career. And there are so many other careers, by the way. These are just the most common ones I'm talking about. But then you have today, a number of careers outside of the typical ones. Like, for example, you can become a designer. That's one of the up and coming careers. You can become a product manager. You can also become a freelancer. You can become a content creator and so many other things, right? So having an understanding of what you're good at and what you like doing is important at the first stage. Once you have developed that understanding, you need to connect it with what the reality of the job market is, right? So it's not enough to know yourself. It's also important to understand what you know about yourself, how that connects with the job market. So let's say, you're good at interacting with people. That might mean a role in sales or in marketing might be relevant for you. But how do you decide which one is most relevant for you between those two or any other people oriented role? You do research on the market, understand which roles are in demand, which roles are high paid, which roles actually align with the expectations you have in terms of the nature of work, and then understand patterns to align both of those things, which is your personality as well as the external job market. And we have done this for a number of people to know that this particular framework really works, right? So this is the number one thing that we do. Once we have gained clarity on which roles and industries are best fit, we move on to the next phase where we talk about your skill set, right? Because once you have figured out a role that is best fit for you, you need to understand whether you're ready to perform well in that role, right? So here the most important thing is to do an assessment of your existing skill set, right? Which might mean taking stock of whatever work you have done so far in your career, building a catalog of what kind of skills you have been able to master in your prior roles, and then look at what are the skills that are needed in your target role. So again, let's take an example. Let's say you are an engineer, you're transitioning to a product manager, right? As an engineer, you're probably great at development, DevOps processes, maybe testing, QA, all these kind of things. But as a product manager, you need more than these skills. You need to have certain basic understanding of development, but at the same time, you need to have a good understanding of business strategy. You need to have really good stakeholder management and communication skills, also documentation skills. For example, if you're preparing a PRD or an MRD document, you need to track it very, very much in detail, and a lot of other things that you need. So when we look at your skill set, we will identify what you are already good at, capitalize on those transferable skills, but then also look at some of the gaps in your skill set so that we can then bridge those gaps. So if you're trying to understand how to bridge the skill gaps, you should know that today there are multiple avenues to bridge gaps for your skill set. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to go back to graduate school, take off from work for 1 or 2 years, and then move on to the next career. You can just First, look at online courses, which might be short format courses on platforms like Coursera, Udemy, edX, even Upgrad. Right, all of these platforms are well suited for mid-career professionals who are looking to upskill or acquire one or two new skills in addition to what they already have. Right, but this is just scratching the surface of how you can upskill. Apart from that, you can also do a couple of other things. Like, for example, you can do a quick freelancing with a startup by building your profile on Upwork or multiple other freelance platforms. Right, it might take a little bit of time to get that first project, but once you get even one or two projects, you should be able to get better at using the new skills that you are aspiring for. So let's say if again you are thinking about becoming a designer, you can offer your design skills as a part-time freelancer on Upwork. Try to get one or two projects where you can put your theoretical knowledge into practice and get feedback from clients on how to improve as well. You could do that. You could build your own personal project. Let's say if you don't want to go through the hassle of building a profile on a freelance platform and getting clients and all that, you can do your own side project where you can take any problem statement within your target role and try to come up with a deck, a PowerPoint deck, and see how you can provide solutions to that problem by using some framework, some methodical approach. So there are multiple ways to bridge these skill gaps. And it's not just courses. You can do the freelancing side projects, you can do internships or volunteer, many different ways to bridge skill gaps. The other thing after you have bridged your skill gaps is to look at your network. So a lot of times people don't have the right connections in their network when they are making a career transition. Because let's say if I have worked in engineering for 10 years and now I'm thinking about moving to product management, right? Chances are I don't know many people in product management, or at least people outside of my own organization in product management. And you can't get career advice generally from people in your organization because they have a vested interest in helping their own organization rather than helping you in your career, right? So it's important that you connect with the right people online, maybe through LinkedIn or through platforms like ours, through Pivot, where we connect you with industry experts in your target role for one-on-one guidance. And you can build your network very quickly, very easily that way, right? So you need to definitely have a solid network when you're transitioning because you will be, requiring a lot of one-on-one guidance from people who have the experience that you're looking to gain. You would also be looking to get referrals for job opportunities down the line. And having the right connections can be extremely helpful for that, right? And there are multiple other ways that an industry mentor can help. So this part focuses on networking, building your network, deepening connections with the people who are in your network, and then giving something to them so that they can reciprocate the favor and help you in achieving your goals as well, right? Once we have done the upskilling and networking, we move on to the next phase, which looks at your job application that you're using to apply for roles online, right? So in this phase, we would look at your entire set of documents, which includes, let's say, your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn profile, perhaps a portfolio that you have prepared to showcase your skills, your quality of work. So you need to make sure when you're preparing these documents that you address your reason for making a career transition, right? A lot of times, let's say somebody's trying to move from engineering to product management. What they do is they just talk about their engineering experience in their resume and their LinkedIn profile, the cover letter. They don't really focus that much on explaining to the recruiter or the person who'd be reading your application why you are changing your profile, why you would be a good fit for the new role that you're applying for, right? So you're kind of leaving it for the recruiter or the hiring manager to come up with their own reasons to understand whether you would be a good fit or not. And that's not a good strategy, right? You need to make it very clear and transparent to anybody who has a decision on your candidacy, whether you would be, a good fit. So it's important that you make sure that all of these different documents, whether it's your cover letter, LinkedIn profile, or resume, talk about what kind of skills you have that could be useful in that new role. How can you actually contribute to the organization that you're applying to in achieving their goals. Generally, you can do that very well in your cover letter at least, but also in your resume and LinkedIn profile. The other place which people underestimate, where they can, sell themselves, or they can talk very much in detail on how to actually make the transition, or why they will be good at the new role, is your portfolio. Right. So in your portfolio, if you have done a side project, or you have done some sort of an internship or anything else, you can then showcase that work in your portfolio. Right. Now we get to the interview preparation phase. So interview preparation again is a great way to showcase to an interviewer or recruiter hiring manager why you would be a good fit for the role you're applying for. And if they have already selected you for an interview, chances are that they see some potential. So you need to not rehearse a lot, but definitely need to have some talking points and practice those talking points for your interview. So you're not caught off guard during the interview with any question, right? So there are some typical questions that companies ask in terms of, tell me about yourself, tell me about a time when you faced a certain challenge and how did you overcome that challenge. There would be a lot of then technical questions related to your specific function or role, depending on what that role is, and a bunch of other questions, right? So you can easily find what the most commonly asked questions are and prepare for them, but don't rehearse it too much so it doesn't feel like, that you have memorized the answer, you have rehearsed it too much. It should be, kind of natural and on, flowing discussion that happens during the interview. And very organically, you should try to address all the key points that the interview is trying to ask you to, right? It's always good to get clarity on a question if you don't understand something, so that you're not trying to, make something up, or you're not answering something in a very confusing or convoluted manner. So try to ask questions from your interviewer when you are preparing for an interview. And finally, once you have, let's say, been preparing for job applications and interview, then you need to think about how you're going to actually apply for jobs and get as many responses from companies as possible, right? So rather than just applying on platforms, which is something that everybody is already doing and you continue to do, so you should apply on LinkedIn or Naukri or IM jobs or Well Found, all of these different portals, right? Depending on what your role is. In addition to this, you need to also figure out other ways where you will have a higher chance of standing out or of getting a company to respond to you, right? So what are these ways? So I had talked about networking. Networking is one of the best ways to get referrals and then get a response from companies. We have done this so many times for so many of our pivot users and seen success that we know that there is a lot of benefit in networking and utilizing those connections that you have for referrals down the line, right? So that's number one. The other thing to do is do direct outreach to recruiters and hiring managers for the roles where you're applying. So let's say there is a specific, product management role or a marketing role or an engineering role you have applied to at any large tech startup, right? Try to reach out to them on LinkedIn or via email and tell them that you have applied for this role, why you are really interested in this role, and why you would be a good fit. Keep it short. You don't have to make it extremely long, but ensure that you're addressing all the key reasons for why somebody should hire you, right? That increases your probability of hearing back from a company by at least 4 to 5 times, right? So usually there is less than 5% chance of hearing back if you just apply on portals. But now if you're reaching out directly to a recruiter or hiring manager, that increases from less than 5% to maybe about 20%, right? So definitely a lot of merit in reaching out directly to people. Also using your network to get referrals where possible. And then obviously ensuring that you are personalizing your application to each job that you apply to, rather than using just the same exact resume, a generic cover letter. You have to make it more personalized, right? So yeah, I think I have covered some of the key things that people can do to achieve their career transition at this point. I want to take a pause and Venkat or any other hosts in the room and see if people would like to ask any questions.
Yes, sir. We have some questions. We'll take them at the end. You can continue the session.
Okay. Can you tell me how much time more do we have before we get to the question and answer?
Uh, we have 15 minutes, sir.
Okay, so we are basically doing question and answer in the last 10 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. I don't know if I will be covering for 15 more minutes in terms of this one-sided discussion, but yeah, I can share a few more things. Right? What we can do is perhaps go through a specific case study of a person who has been able to make a career transition. Right? So we worked with somebody early on at Pivot who came to us because he wanted to move from engineering to finance. Right? Now, those are two very different kinds of profile. Engineering is all about, coding, especially if it's software engineering, it's all about coding. And it's a 9 to 5 job primarily at your desk, in front of your computer screen and ensuring that you're building a high quality web app or a mobile app, right? Compare that to finance, which is all about crunching numbers, analyzing data, making sure that the company's profit and loss statements, their balance sheets, and other income statements are done accurately, and that the company can continue to grow its finance by doing very in-depth financial planning and analysis, right? So very different kinds of roles. And the reason that this person wanted to change their careers is because they really did not enjoy the nature of work as a developer. And they also felt like they were stagnating in their career because there were so many developers at the company, right? And they didn't feel they would be able to stand out in their role and be able to progress in the organization. So they wanted to change to a finance role for these reasons. And they also thought that finance would have a better pay opportunity compared to what they were getting. Now, what did this person do to actually accomplish that transition? Number one, they firstly try to identify what are the best roles within finance that would be best suited for them, right? So, like any other field, it's not just finance. There are typically multiple roles in a field that you can aspire for, right? Whether it's engineering, whether it's product management, whether it's finance, consulting, marketing, etc., etc. There are a lot of sub functions, subdomains that you can target. For finance specifically, for example, you can look at a role which is more, in accounting, auditing, corporate finance, these kind of roles where you're looking at companies' accounting statements, so income statement, balance sheet, cash flows, etc. Right, and you're just auditing it or you're helping the company manage it. Right, this is one kind of a role in finance. The other roles in finance would be, for example, becoming an investment banker, right? Investment bankers do very different things compared to what we just talked about as an auditor or a corporate finance person. So in investment banking, typically people help do these large merger and acquisition deals, right? Where they help companies either sell to another company or buy another, right? They also help companies go public by listing them on the exchanges that we have, your BSE and NSE exchanges, right? So that they can raise capital. Basically, the goal of an investment banker is to help companies raise new capital and be able to scale their business to that new capital, right? So very different again from corporate finance and audit roles. Then you also have another kind of finance role, which is in private equity and venture capital space, right? So this is for people who like to invest in other companies primarily. And if you do that, you can expect certain kind of returns on your investment, right? So these are the 3 4 different kinds of roles you can just target within finance. So it's not enough to say I want to get a role in finance. You need to have a better understanding about the different opportunities available within finance and figure out which role is best for you. So going back to this person that I was talking about, we first helped him gain clarity that within finance, there are multiple roles you can target based on what your goals are, what your priorities are, and what your skills are. Which roles do we feel are going to be the best fit for you, right? So we for this person figured that investment banking would be the best field for them because they had spent their career as an engineer but primarily in the shipping and transportation industry. And shipping transportation industries usually have a lot of M&A, meaning merger and acquisition activity that goes on. So if that person could bring in some of the industry knowledge that they had about the shipping and transportation sector, they could utilize that domain knowledge, that industry knowledge to become a good investment banker, right? This would not really be possible that much, at least in corporate finance auditing space, right? Because they would need to really upskill themselves on balance sheet assessment and P&L statement assessment, all of those things. But with investment banking, there was a better fit. So we honed in on that, right? We targeted that as the role that they wanted to focus on. Once we had done that, we did a quick skill gap assessment. We looked at whatever skills they already had, which were primarily in the engineering side of things. And then we figured out that the gaps primarily were on understanding, how to assess a company's financial profile. So again, looking at some of the prior performance history, looking at the potential growth expectations, doing financial projections, and using the typical models, the financial models that investment bankers use to basically project whether the deal would be a good deal or a bad deal for for companies who are considering an M&A, right? So they basically want to focus on understanding what skills they already have, what skills they are missing. And then once they identify what skills are missing, you focus on what are the best courses or other ways to upskill, right? So for this person, we recommended one online course, which was very simple, straightforward, just I think it was about a 6 week course. So it didn't take that much time to understand at least the fundamentals of investment banking, right? This person also, in fact, then did an internship with one of the companies we referred them to within investment banking. And it was obviously an entry level role, but it helped them get very quick practical experience to understand what exactly an investment banker does, and then be able to use that for your resume, so that people who might hire you for your full time role can see that you have some experience, right? So we did that. In terms of networking, we connected this person with somebody who was an investment banker on a full time basis, so had worked in investment banking for over, I believe, 10 plus years. And they could share their whole journey. They could share, their personalized insights with regard to what works when you are transitioning to an investment banking role, and basically help you map out the entire transition, so that you were sure that you were only executing on the most important levers, on the most important action items that will actually translate into results, right? Sometimes people do things on their own which never translate into result. For example, I see a lot of people, like I said, applying for jobs on LinkedIn and Naukri and other platforms, but not hearing back at all from company. That's a complete waste of time, right? So with an industry expert, you kind of skip the things where you might be wasting your time, and you focus on things which have high ROI and you actually get results. So that's why working with an industry mentor is very important. And we connected this person to do exactly that. They also joined certain finance communities, certain investment banking communities, to get in touch with a large circle of people who can, who can provide them more learnings about the field. They can also share connections about the field and multiple other things, right? So having a good network in your target field is always recommended. Once you have done this, we moved on to the job application and interview preparation phase, right? So this was one of the most important things, where we looked at this person's resume firstly, and then their LinkedIn profile and cover letter. So in resume, what we try to do is, rather than just sharing a typical, description of their prior experience, which is, in my current role, I do this. In my, last role, these were the responsibilities I had. We took a slightly unique approach. Okay, we actually took an approach which very few people take, which is we focused on the skills that were required from the employer perspective for the finance roles or the investment banking roles that were being targeted, right? So let's say communication is one of the key skills, or let's say sales is one of the key skills, right? So what we did was we built a resume that focused on that skill, and then described the kind of experience or the contributions that this person had made for that skill. So let's say if you're talking about communication, they may not have been an investment banker, but even in engineering, when you're coordinating with a large team of developers and designers, product managers, and other people within the organization, your communication skills have to be good. So we ensured that this person talked about what kind of skills they had in their prior role that can be transferred or that can be leveraged for the future role as well, right? So this is what we did in the resume. In terms of LinkedIn profile, people typically don't put a lot of details about their role and capabilities. So we help them expand their profile. And, we could have a whole session about LinkedIn profile optimization, but there are multiple sections on your LinkedIn profile, right? There is a header statement, which talks about your core expertise. Then there is about section where you talk about, your responsibilities in your current role, what kind of roles you're looking for, and anything else you want to highlight for your LinkedIn profile visitors. And then you have your experience section where you talk about, what kind of companies and roles you've worked in and what exact duties you had in those roles and what kind of achievements you've made in those roles, right? So these are all the things that you cover in your LinkedIn profile. In the cover letters, like I had said earlier, is one of the best place to talk about why you are making a transition and how you can be a good fit for the target role. So don't use a generic format for your cover letter. Try to personalize it based on the role you're applying for. And that's what we did here with this person as well. We firstly helped them expand on the LinkedIn profile, made it very clear for people to understand why they were transitioning to investment banking and how they can be good at it. Same thing we did in the cover letter. There was a whole story behind what that person had achieved, what kind of transition they were planning on making, what was the core reason for pursuing that transition, and then some of the key skills and other competencies this person had that would help them be a successful investment banker in the new role, right? So we talked about all of these things in the cover letter. We also had a resume from the internship, a portfolio from this internship that we talked about earlier, right? So the person did an internship in investment banking at a firm, and they were able to pitch on certain M&A projects, which they then talked about in the portfolio. We did this. Apart from this, we also did one-on-one mock interviews where we asked the typical questions from that are asked from an investment banker. So the industry expert that we had connected this person with, they had Zoom sessions, couple of them, to go over all of the different questions and help them understand where they can improve their answers, right? So this was the entire approach we took for job application and interview preparation. And then finally, when it came to job search support, we helped the person apply on selected portals, not every single portal out there, selected portals, selected companies where we thought they would be the best fit. We also circulated this person's resume in our own network of industry experts so that they could get referrals from our industry experts, which again, I have emphasized a couple of times now how networking and referrals are very, very important. And finally, we also reached out to recruiters and hiring managers directly on LinkedIn or via emails to say that, hey, this person has applied for XYZ role. This is why they might be a good fit. And let us know if you think we can have an initial discussion so that we can tell you more about this candidate, right? So all of these things combined really help the person shorten their career transition journey from, let's say, it would have taken them over a year to complete it. It took them less than 3 months to complete the entire transition, right? And it also costed them much less compared to, let's say, going to a business school and getting an MBA. So today, there are many different ways to accomplish your career goals. It doesn't have to be just going back to a graduate school or kind of suffering alone, taking a leap of faith. And that's what I wanted to showcase through this example. All right. I think we have covered quite a bit, Venkat. So at this point, maybe we can open it up to Q&A.
Thank you, Mr. Arjun Prakash, for sharing your invaluable insights on how to change our careers in 2023. Your expertise and guidance have been truly inspiring, and we greatly appreciate the knowledge you shared with us today. Now, it's time to move on to the highly anticipated Q&A session. As participants, you have the opportunity to engage directly with Mr. Arjun and ask any questions you may have to related to the career transition. Well, I already see some questions in the chat, so sir, with your permission, I will recite the questions for you. Well,
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
yes, sir. The first question is, how can I identify it's the right time to make a career change, and what steps should I take to prepare for the transition?
Okay. So basically, there are a couple of signs that you need to look out for when you are thinking about whether a career change is right for you or not, right? There are two types of reasons that I had mentioned that people do career change for. Number one is something is broken, something is not working in your current career, right? So let's say you're in a role which doesn't have a lot of work life balance, that doesn't have a lot of flexibility. You have to work long hours every day, but you're looking to dial that down, and you want to work, let's say, only 9 or 10 hours a day, not 14, 15 hours a day, right? So that could be a good reason to think about a career change, because if you are in a role or an industry where generally people spend a lot of time working on an everyday basis, you may not be able to achieve that even if you change your job from one company to another, right? So, for example, let's say you're in investment banking. Typically, on average, investment bankers work about 13, 14 hours a day. But maybe you are targeting a role which is only 8 or 9 hours. So maybe you need to think about transitioning to another role within finance or outside of finance, which has less, workload. Other reasons can be that you are looking to really achieve something specific or make certain kind of impact in your next role, which you cannot in your current role. So, for example, I had mentioned, you like working with people, but in your current role, you're not getting a lot of, customer interaction, customer interfacing, and that might be a reason to look for a role where you can actually utilize your inclination, your skills to work more directly with people. So again, if let's say you're in an operations role, you might be working just internally with with your manager, with a couple of team members, but you might be seeking a customer facing role. And in that case, you might want to transition to a, sales or marketing role from operations. So these are the couple of different reasons you can look for. There are many other reasons, I would say, apart from these, but generally it is something that is either not working out for you in your current career, like work life balance, like growth opportunities, etc., or it's something that you are specifically trying to achieve in your new role, which you cannot in your current role, which could be, let's say, you are very passionate about the next role you're targeting. It could be that you are looking for high pay or something like that, right? So yeah, these are some of the reasons why people pursue a career transition.
Yes, sir. I think that my hat cleared that out for him. And the last question I see is, are there any specific industries or job sectors that are currently experiencing a higher demand of talent in 2023?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are quite a few roles, I would say, that are experiencing higher demand right now. Obviously, job market has been negatively impacted since last year. Basically, since the inflation issues arose globally. So a lot of companies cut back on their hiring, they did layoffs, and the job market became very tight where there is more demand for jobs than there is supply, right? But at the same time, what we have seen is that overall economy is doing well, and there are specific sectors in the economy which are outperforming other sectors. So what are these sectors? Typically, you would see that these sectors are the ones which are aligned with the cyclicality of the economy. What I mean by that, when the economy is doing well, these companies do well, and when the economy is down, these companies also go down. So, like, technology is definitely one of the spaces, even though there have been a lot of layoffs happening by the large tech companies, there are usually like mid-sized or small-sized tech companies, like startups and all, which have continued to hire significantly, right? Apart from that, BFSI is a big space where we see a lot of recruiting and hiring still happening. So BFSI meaning banking, financial services, insurance companies. There is a lot of recruitment activity still going on because India is on a growth path right now. And whenever a large country like India is experiencing high growth, it is usually, funded through capital, right? And that capital is basically circulated and it kind of worked on by these organizations like banks, financial services, insurance companies. So they have a big role to play in terms of helping companies and individuals achieving their growth goals, right? So, for example, if a startup is looking to scale, they need funds. And who funds them is typically these BFSI companies, right? In addition to the VCs and PEs. So BFSI is a good space to think about. I think FMCG is again another sector where we see good hiring happening because consumer demand has remained high and continues to remain high for everyday items, right? For your staples and typical consumer goods. the demand continues to rise. So you can think about fast moving consumer goods industries. Yeah, I would say that these are a couple of the sectors where we see good demand.
That's an informative answer, sir. So that's the end of the Q&A session. Thank you all for being a part of this wonderful experience. Your active participation has made this webinar truly exceptional. We hope the knowledge and insights shared today will pave the way for successful career transitions in 2023 and beyond. A special thanks to you, our esteemed speaker, Mr. Arjun Prakash, for his valuable expertise and dedication in guiding us towards achieving our career goals. Your presence has truly made this event remarkable. As we begin to close our webinar, remember that your journey to the fulfilling and rewarding career doesn't end here. Keep exploring the endless possibilities that lie ahead. Stay inspired, stay motivated. We wish you all the best on your journey of career transformation. Thank you once again for joining us, and we look forward to welcoming you in future webinars. Until then, take care and goodbye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.